Picture this. It's 60 AD. A British queen stands in her war chariot before 100,000 warriors. Her back's raw from Roman whips. Her teenage daughters, the Romans them both. Publicly, to teach her submission. Bad move. This woman was trained to fight from childhood. Her name is Boudicca, and she's about to burn 3 Roman cities to the ground and kill 70,000 people. But here's what you've never heard. This story doesn't start with revenge. It starts 6 years earlier, with hope. Tonight, we're going back to Roman Britain, to a time when everything hung in the balance. So get comfortable, dim the lights, let your mind drift back 2,000 years. If you're new here, consider subscribing to Sleep Story Scribes. We dig deep into history's most incredible true stories. And hey, drop a comment. Where are you listening from right now? What time is it there? I love hearing from you. Alright, let's step into the world of the Iceni. Chapter 1. Peace in the midst of occupation. 54 AD. East Anglia. Rolling green hills dotted with round houses, smoke curling from cooking fires, the sound of hammers on metal. This is the heartland of the Iceni tribe, and if you didn't know better, you'd think this was just another thriving British settlement. But look closer. See those men in red cloaks? The ones with the short swords and rectangular shields? Romans, living right alongside the Iceni. This isn't conquest. Not exactly. It's something stranger. A marriage of convenience between two cultures that should hate each other. The Iceni aren't slaves. They're allies, sort of. Their king, Prasutagus, made a deal with Emperor Claudius. Keep the peace, pay some tribute, and Rome won't crush you like they crushed everyone else. Sounds reasonable, right? Here's the thing about deals with Rome. The terms can change, without warning, and when they do, people die. Prasutagus knows this. He's not naive. He's watched tribe after tribe get swallowed by the Roman machine. The Catuvellani, the Atrebates. Resistance meant death. Submission meant survival. Maybe. So he chose door number 3, partnership. Let Roman merchants trade in Iceni markets. Let Roman engineers build better roads. Let a few Roman officials advise on governance. Keep your people fed and your enemies at bay. Smart move, except Prasutagus won't live forever, and when he dies, meet Boudicca, Prasutagus' wife, queen of the Iceni. She's not some delicate flower playing politics from the shadows. Celtic noblewomen train with swords and spears from childhood. They ride into battle alongside their husbands. They rule in their own right. Boudicca stands nearly 6 feet tall, red hair flowing past her shoulders, golden torques around her neck and wrists. When she speaks, warriors listen. When she's angry, well, Rome's about to find out what that looks like. But in 54 AD, Boudicca's not angry. She's cautious, watchful. This alliance with Rome, it's working. Sort of. Iceni territories are prosperous. Their warriors haven't died in pointless battles. Their children aren't slaves in Roman mines. The price? Pride. Independence. The old ways slowly fading as Roman customs creep in. Some Iceni embrace it. Others seethe quietly. Boudicca, she's calculating, waiting, hoping her husband's strategy pays off, hoping Rome keeps its promises, hoping never works with empires. Their daughters are teenagers now. We don't know their names, history forgot to record them, but they're royal blood, Iceni royalty. They should inherit lands, titles, power. That's how it works in British law. Daughters can rule, women can own property. Revolutionary concepts to Roman minds. Roman law says different. When a man dies, his property goes to Rome or to male heirs, preferably Roman male heirs. Cultural differences aren't just academic here. They're about to become lethal. Prasutagus sees the writing on the wall. He's getting older. His health isn't what it was. When he dies, what happens to his kingdom? To his wife? To his daughters? Roman law won't recognize their claims. Roman officials are already making suggestions about succession, friendly suggestions, the kind that aren't really suggestions at all. So Prasutagus starts crafting his masterpiece, a will that tries to satisfy everyone. Roman law and British tradition. It's brilliant. It's reasonable. It's completely doomed. Here's his plan. Split the kingdom 50-50. Half goes to Emperor Nero, half goes to his daughters. Everyone wins. Rome gets territory and tribute. His family keeps their lands and status. The Iceni keep their culture and autonomy. It's the perfect compromise between two worlds. Prasutagus spends months working out details, making sure every clause is bulletproof, getting informal approval from Roman officials. He thinks he's outsmarted the empire. Poor bastard, he has no idea what's coming. Meanwhile, Roman attitudes are shifting. Emperor Claudius is dead. Nero's in charge now, and Nero's advisors have different ideas about managing Britain. Less carrot, more stick. Why share power with barbarians when you can just take everything? British client kings are starting to look like expensive luxuries, unnecessary complications. The new thinking says total control is more efficient, more profitable, more Roman. Change is coming to the Iceni lands, change with teeth. But for now, in 54 AD, the illusion holds. Romans and Iceni work side by side in the markets. Intermarriage happens, trade flourishes. It looks like integration, like successful colonialism, the kind historians write about approvingly. Two cultures blending into something new, except it's not blending. It's one culture slowly devouring another. The stronger always absorbs the weaker, always, and when the absorption is complete, there's nothing left to remember what came before, nothing except stories of rebellion. Prasutagus doesn't see it yet. He's too busy managing the day-to-day reality of hybrid governance. Roman efficiency meets Celtic tradition. It creates interesting problems, like when Roman law says one thing and tribal custom says another. Who wins? Usually Rome, but not always, not yet. Prasutagus still has enough authority to push back, to protect his people's interests, to maintain the balance. But balance is fragile, and Rome doesn't do balance forever. Eventually they tip the scales. The year 54 AD represents the high watermark of this impossible experiment, Iceni independence within Roman hegemony. It won't last, can't last. But for now, Prasutagus believes he's found a way to have both, British freedom and Roman protection, his legacy secured, his family safe, his people prosperous. He's built something beautiful and fragile and doomed, because 6 years from now, he'll be dead, and everything he worked to preserve will shatter in a single afternoon of Roman arrogance. Chapter 2: The Death of a King and a Shattered Alliance. 60 AD, East Anglia. King Prasutagus is dying. The Iceni ruler knows his time's running out, and he's made what he thinks is a brilliant political move, a will that'll protect his people, keep the Romans happy, save his daughters from the brutal fate that swallowed other tribal kingdoms. But here's the thing about brilliant political moves. They only work if the other side plays by the same rules. And Rome? Rome doesn't play by anyone's rules but their own. Prasutagus had spent 17 years as Rome's client king. 17 years walking this impossible tightrope. Keep your people fed and free enough that they don't revolt. Keep Rome satisfied enough that they don't crush you. It's exhausting work. And now on his deathbed he's crafted what he believes is the perfect solution. Split the kingdom, half to his daughters, half to Emperor Nero. Everyone gets something. Everyone stays happy. The Iceni keep their lands, their dignity. Rome gets its tribute. Simple, right? Wrong. The moment Prasutagus breathes his last breath, the crisis begins. His body isn't even cold before the whispers start. The Iceni nobles are gathered in the great hall, reading his will aloud. Some are nodding. This could work. The king's daughters are young, but royal blood runs strong. They can rule their half while paying tribute for the other. But others? Others are shaking their heads. You don't divide a kingdom with Rome. You don't split power with an empire. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Here's what Prasutagus didn't understand about Roman law. There's no such thing as sharing power with barbarians. That's literally what they call everyone who isn't Roman, barbarians. The legal framework doesn't even exist. Roman law recognizes Roman citizens, period. Everything else is property of the state. So when word of the will reaches the provincial government, the response is swift and brutal. Cute little document, completely meaningless. We'll be taking the whole kingdom now, because that's what Rome does. Rome takes everything. The political implications hit the Iceni like a lightning bolt. For 17 years they've been allies, not subjects, allies. They've fought alongside Roman legions, sent tribute as partners, not slaves. maintained their own laws, their own customs, their own dignity. Prasutagus wore Roman togas to state dinners and British war paint to tribal ceremonies. It worked. This hybrid existence actually worked. But now they're learning that Rome never saw them as allies, never saw them as partners. They were always just the next conquest that hadn't happened yet. Enter Catus Decianus, Roman procurator. Think of him as the tax collector with an army. His job is simple: extract maximum wealth from conquered territories by any means necessary. And Decianus is very, very good at his job. He looks at the Iceni situation and sees opportunity. Rich farmland, profitable trade routes, accumulated wealth from 17 years of successful alliance, all of it just sitting there, unprotected, because the king is dead and his heir is a woman. This is going to be easier than he thought. Decianus doesn't waste time with legal niceties. Roman soldiers start appearing on Iceni lands, not visiting, occupying, taking inventory, measuring fields, counting livestock, assessing wealth. The message is clear: this isn't your kingdom anymore. These aren't your lands anymore. You're not allies anymore. You're subjects. And subjects don't get to make wills about dividing imperial property. The seizure isn't subtle. It's not gradual. It's happening right now, in broad daylight, and there's nothing you can do about it. Boudicca's initial response is exactly what you'd expect from someone who's been blindsided by betrayal, confusion, anger, a desperate hope that this is all some terrible misunderstanding. She requests meetings with Roman officials, presents her husband's will, explains the alliance, points out 17 years of faithful service. Surely this can be resolved diplomatically. Surely Rome honors its agreements. But every meeting ends the same way. The will is invalid. The alliance is terminated. The kingdom is dissolved. Comply or face the consequences. What consequences? She's about to find out. Watching the alliance crumble is like watching a marriage fall apart in real time. All those years of carefully maintained relationships, Roman officers who ate at Iceni tables, Iceni warriors who fought beside Roman legions, trade agreements, treaties, marriages between noble families, personal friendships built over decades, all of it meaningless now, all of it dissolved with the stroke of a pen. The Romans who seemed like friends yesterday are carrying out orders today. The Iceni who trusted Rome completely are learning what conquest actually looks like. The Roman justifications are masterpieces of bureaucratic doublespeak. The client kingdom arrangement was temporary. Prasutagus held his lands at the pleasure of Rome. His death terminates all previous agreements. Imperial property cannot be inherited by non-citizens. Every legal argument designed to make theft sound like proper procedure. Every precedent carefully chosen to support seizure. It's not conquest. It's administration. It's not betrayal. It's policy. It's not breaking faith. It's following the law. Roman law, the only law that matters. The tensions escalate daily. Roman soldiers aren't just occupying lands now, they're occupying homes. Iceni nobles are being evicted from estates their families have held for generations. Livestock is being requisitioned for Roman use. Grain stores are being redistributed to supply Roman garrisons. Sacred groves are being cut down for timber. Every day brings fresh humiliation. Every day proves that Rome never respected anything about Iceni culture. They were just waiting for Prasutagus to die so they could take everything. Boudicca's defiance starts small and grows larger. First, she refuses to evacuate the royal compound. Then she refuses to acknowledge Roman authority over tribal lands. Then she starts holding court as queen, not as a Roman client. She's not ready for war yet, but she's not backing down either. Every small act of resistance sends a message to her people, to other tribes, to Rome itself. The Iceni are not going quietly into imperial subjugation. The widow queen is not surrendering her daughter's inheritance without a fight. The point of no return comes when Boudicca formally challenges the seizure. Not through diplomacy anymore, through law. She demands a hearing before the governor. She wants to present evidence of the alliance, testimony from Roman officers who witnessed the agreements, documentation of tribute paid and obligations met. She still believes in justice, still believes the system can work if she can just get to the right people with the right evidence. It's her last attempt at a peaceful solution, and it's about to go spectacularly wrong. But here's what Boudicca doesn't know yet. What none of the Iceni know. Catus Decianus isn't just seizing their lands. He's planning to make an example of them. A very public, very brutal example that will show every other British tribe exactly what happens to those who question Roman authority. The flogging post is already being prepared. The punishment is already planned. And Boudicca's daughters, well, their fate is going to be worse than anyone can imagine. The alliance is dead. The war is coming. Chapter 3. The Flames of Injustice. Ignite a rebellion. The Roman procurator Catus Decianus thought he'd solved a problem. This British queen, this widow who dared question Roman authority, she needed to learn her place. What happened next in that town square would echo through history, not because of what the Romans did, but because of who they chose to do it to. Boudicca wasn't just any Celtic noblewoman. She'd been trained to fight since childhood, and now they were about to teach her exactly why she'd need those skills. The flogging post stood in the centre of town. Public humiliation was the point. Strip away dignity, break the spirit, make an example. Boudicca was dragged forward, hands bound. The gathered Iceni watched in stunned silence as their queen was tied to the wooden post. The first lash tore across her back, then another, and another. Each crack of the whip was meant to break her. Instead, with every strike, something else was building. In her eyes, in the crowd, something the Romans completely misunderstood. But the flogging wasn't the worst of it. While Boudicca bled against the post, Roman soldiers seized her daughters, two teenage girls dragged away while their mother watched helplessly. What happened to them? The Romans called it teaching a lesson. The Iceni had another word for it. The details don't matter here. What matters is this. When those girls emerged, broken and traumatized, something fundamental shifted in their mother, and in every person who witnessed it. The Romans had just created their own nightmare. They cut Boudicca down from the post. She collapsed, back raw and bleeding, but her eyes never left the Roman officers. No tears, no begging, just a stare that would haunt Catus Decianus for the rest of his short life. Her daughters helped her stand. All three women, brutalized but unbroken. The Romans expected submission, gratitude even for the lesson learned. Instead, they got silence. The kind of silence that comes right before the storm. They should have been terrified. The Iceni tribe dispersed slowly from that town square. Families walking home in shocked silence. Children asking whispered questions their parents couldn't answer. How do you explain watching your queen, your protector, violated like that? How do you process seeing innocents destroyed for no reason except Roman cruelty? By evening, that silence had transformed into something else. Conversations in low voices, fists clenched around kitchen knives, old weapons pulled down from hiding places. The Romans had wanted to send a message. They had. Word spread through the Iceni settlements like wildfire. Not official word, whispered word. Rider to rider, village to village. The queen has been flogged. The princesses have been hurt. The Romans think we'll submit now. But here's what the Romans didn't understand about Celtic culture. Attacking a queen, harming royal daughters, these weren't just crimes. They were violations of everything sacred. Honor, family, the very gods themselves. And the Iceni were about to remind Rome exactly why you don't anger the gods. Boudicca spent 3 days recovering from the flogging. 3 days lying on her stomach while her wounds healed. 3 days listening to her daughter's quiet crying. 3 days thinking. On the 4th day, she stood up, walked outside, called for her war chariot. Her people gathered, uncertain. Their queen looked different, harder. Something in her face had changed during those 3 days of pain. When she spoke, her voice carried across the crowd like thunder. We are done bending the knee to Rome. The transformation was incredible to witness. This wasn't the diplomatic queen who'd tried reasoning with Roman bureaucrats. This wasn't the grieving widow who'd hoped her husband's will would protect them. This was something primal, ancient, a Celtic war leader awakening after decades of peace. Boudicca began calling in debts, favours owed to her family, old alliances forged through marriage and warfare. She sent riders to every Iceni village with the same message: gather your weapons, gather your warriors, gather your rage, we ride for war. The response was immediate. Warriors began arriving at Boudicca's stronghold within days. Young men eager for glory, Old soldiers who remembered fighting before the Romans came. Farmers carrying ancient spears passed down from their grandfathers. Women too, because Celtic culture didn't forbid female warriors. They came with their children, their livestock, their portable wealth. This wasn't just an army gathering. This was a people preparing for total war, all or nothing, freedom or death. The Romans had left them no middle ground. But Boudicca wasn't thinking small. The Iceni alone couldn't drive Rome from Britain. She needed allies. The Trinovantes tribe had their own grievances. Roman colonists stealing their ancestral lands, their sacred sites desecrated. Other tribes remembered promises broken, treaties ignored. Boudicca sent messengers racing across eastern Britain, not begging for help, offering partnership, offering leadership, offering something they'd all forgotten they could have: hope. Hope that Rome could actually be beaten, that these golden eagles could bleed. The tribal chiefs came to meet with her. Hardened warriors who'd spent 20 years submitting to Roman rule, paying Roman taxes, watching their sons recruited into Roman armies. They looked at Boudicca, this woman with fresh scars on her back, fire in her eyes, and started remembering who they used to be, before the occupation, before the fear, before they'd learnt to bow their heads when Roman patrols passed. One by one, the alliances formed, blood oaths sworn, war bands promised. The rebellion was taking shape. What amazed everyone was how fast it grew. Not just warriors joining entire communities, blacksmiths forging weapons day and night, druids blessing the cause, calling on ancient gods for victory. Even Roman allied Britons began switching sides. The brutality shown to Boudicca had backfired completely. Instead of terrorizing people into submission, it had given them a martyr, a symbol, someone who'd suffered what they all feared suffering and chosen to fight back rather than accept it. The Romans had created exactly the leader Britain needed. By midsummer, Boudicca commanded an army unlike anything Britain had seen in generations. Not just Iceni warriors, but Trinovantes, Corieltavar, dozens of smaller tribes. Conservative estimates put her forces at 50,000. Some sources claim 100,000. Men, women, even teenagers old enough to hold weapons. They came with chariots, horses, war paint, and 20 years of accumulated rage. The Romans had given them a reason to unite. Boudicca had given them the leadership to make it happen. And here's the beautiful irony. Governor Suetonius was hundreds of miles away, campaigning against the Druids in Wales. Most of the Roman legions with him. The major cities, Camulodunum, Londinium, Verulamium, defended by skeleton crews and retired veterans. The Romans were so confident in British submission, they'd left their heartland nearly defenseless. Boudicca looked at her vast army, studied the intelligence her scouts brought back, and smiled. For the first time since her husband's death, she smiled. Rome was about to learn a very expensive lesson. Chapter 4. A queen becomes a warrior. After they flogged her, after what they did to her daughters, Boudicca sits in the ruins of her great hall, staring at nothing. The Iceni elders whisper she's broken, that the Romans finally crushed their queen's spirit. But here's what they don't know about Celtic women, what the Romans never bothered to learn. When you push them past grief, past rage, something else awakens, something their ancestors knew, something that's been sleeping in Boudicca's blood since childhood. See, Celtic girls didn't just learn to weave and cook, not the noble ones. They learned to fight. Boudicca's father made sure of that. Sword work at dawn, spear throwing until her shoulders screamed, chariot handling until she could take a turn at full gallop without losing her footing. The Romans thought Celtic women were decorations, pretty things to be conquered. They had no idea they'd just tortured a warrior queen who'd been training for war since she was 7 years old. 3 days after the flogging, old Caradoc appears at her door, bent with age, scarred from a dozen battles. He fought the Romans when they first landed 20 years ago, lost everything. But he's still here, still sharp. He sets a sword on her table, iron blade, worn leather grip. "Your father's," he says quietly. "He told me to give it to you when the time came." Boudicca's hand closes around the hilt. The weight feels right. Word spreads through the settlements. The queen is moving again, training in secret clearings before dawn. But it's not just her. Other women start showing up. Mothers who lost sons to Roman taxes. Wives whose husbands were sold into slavery. daughters whose futures were stolen. Each one carries weapons their families thought were buried forever. Celtic women don't just mourn their dead, they arm themselves. And Boudicca, she remembers everything her father taught her. The first time she swings that sword in anger, 20 years of muscle memory floods back. Her form is rusty, but the instincts are pure. Caradoc nods approval. Still got it, girl, but it's more than technique. It's the look in her eyes. The Romans thought they'd broken her spirit. Instead, they've awakened something that was dormant, something dangerous. The grieving mother is still there, but now she's wrapped in the skin of a warrior queen. Messengers start arriving from distant tribes, whispered conversations in the shadows. The Trinovantes remember how Rome betrayed them too. The Brigantes have their own stories of Roman cruelty. These aren't official delegations, just individuals, warriors who've been waiting for someone to light the spark. They see what's happening to Boudicca, and they recognize it. The transformation from victim to avenger, from broken woman to rallying point. Something's building across Britain, something the Romans won't see coming. The training sessions get bigger. What started as a handful of angry women becomes dozens, then hundreds. They meet in sacred groves, abandoned hill forts, anywhere the Romans don't patrol. Boudicca teaches what she remembers. Others share family techniques passed down through generations. Shield work, spear formations, chariot tactics their grandparents used against Julius Caesar. These aren't amateur rebels playing at war. These are Celts remembering what their people were before Rome came knocking. Here's what gets me about this moment. The Romans think they've won. They've crushed the Iceni leadership, seized their lands, made an example of their queen. Classic imperial playbook. Show overwhelming force, break their will, watch them submit. It worked everywhere else. Gaul, Germania, half the known world. But they misread something fundamental about the Celts, about their women, about what happens when you cross certain lines. Boudicca isn't planning submission, she's planning war. The breakthrough comes during a mock battle. Boudicca's leading a charge when everything clicks. Her balance, her timing, the way her people respond to her voice. She's not just remembering how to fight, she's remembering how to lead warriors, how to inspire them. The watching Celts see it too. The way she moves, the authority in her commands. This isn't practice anymore. This is a war queen finding her power, and everyone present knows they're witnessing something historic. Stories of her transformation spread faster than any messenger could carry them. Boudicca the victim becomes Boudicca the avenger, the queen who refused to stay broken. Tribes that haven't spoken in decades start sending representatives, not to negotiate, not to discuss terms, but to watch, to see if the stories are true, if the Iceni queen really is what they're hearing. A woman who looked Roman power in the face and chose war over submission. The war paint comes out during the full moon, ancient patterns her grandmother taught her, blue spirals that mark a Celtic queen ready for battle. When the others see her face, something shifts in the camp. The training stops feeling like preparation. It feels like ceremony, like ritual, like the old gods are watching and approving. Boudicca stands in the firelight, transformed, not the broken woman the Romans created, but the warrior queen they awakened without knowing it. By winter's end, her following has grown beyond anything the Romans could imagine. Not just Iceni anymore, warriors from across the southeast. Men and women who've been waiting for someone to stand up and fight back. They see in Boudicca what they need to see, proof that Rome can be challenged, that their power isn't absolute, that someone is finally willing to pay the price for freedom. The question isn't whether to rebel anymore, it's when. The final test comes when a Roman patrol stumbles across one of their training camps. 12 legionaries against 40 Celts. In the old days, that would have been retreat or surrender. But these aren't the old days, that would have been retreat or surrender. But these aren't the old days. Boudicca raises her father's sword and gives the war cry her people haven't heard in 20 years. What happens next takes less than 10 minutes. When it's over, 12 Romans are dead, and Boudicca knows her people are ready. That night, around the victory fires, she makes the announcement everyone's been waiting for. Spring is coming. The Roman governor is distracted, campaigning in Wales. Most of his legions are with him. The cities are barely defended. And Boudicca, she's done training, done preparing, done being patient. She looks at her warriors, their faces painted for war, and speaks the words that will change British history forever. It's time. Word travels fast in ancient Britain, faster than Roman messengers, faster than their horses. Village to village, hill fort to hill fort. The story spreads like wildfire. The Iceni queen who stood up to Rome, who took their worst punishment and didn't break. Boudicca's name becomes a whisper, then a shout, then a war cry. Tribal chiefs who've been bending the knee for 20 years suddenly remember what freedom felt like. The alliance grows daily. Every sunrise brings more warriors. Every sunset, the tide of fury swells even higher. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away in Wales, Governor Suetonius is having the time of his life. Anglesey, sacred island of the Druids. He's burning their groves, slaughtering their priests, wiping out 20 years of resistance in one brutal campaign. Victory tastes sweet, so sweet he doesn't notice the messages piling up back in his headquarters. Reports of unrest, tribal movements. Nothing urgent, his staff thinks. Just the usual grumbling from conquered peoples. Besides, who's going to challenge Rome? The Britons learnt their lesson years ago, didn't they? Back in Camulodunum, life goes on as normal. Roman settlers wake up in their comfortable villas, check on their British slaves, count their profits from confiscated land. The temple to Claudius gleams in the morning sun, that massive symbol of Roman supremacy built with British blood money. Veterans stroll the forums, bragging about old campaigns. Their wives plan dinner parties. Kids play in the streets. Nobody's watching the horizon. Nobody's counting the smoke signals rising from distant hills. Why would they? This is Roman territory now. But Boudicca, she's watching everything. Every road into Camulodunum, every guard patrol, every weak point in walls that were never meant to hold back a real army. See, most people think rage makes you stupid, makes you charge blindly into disaster. They're wrong. Controlled fury? That's the most dangerous weapon in the world. And Boudicca's fury burns cold now. Calculating. She knows exactly how many men guard the city, exactly when they change shifts, exactly how long it takes reinforcements to arrive. Spoiler alert, too long. The Trinovantes join first. Makes perfect sense. Camulodunum sits right on their ancestral land. Used to be their capital before Rome decided otherwise. Their chief remembers when his grandfather ruled those streets. Now Roman settlers live in houses built on tribal graveyards. Their sacred spaces turned into Roman temples. 20 years of watching strangers get rich off stolen ground. 20 years of swallowing pride. But pride's got a way of coming back up, and when it does, it burns like acid. The Trinovantes bring 2,000 warriors to Boudicca's cause, then the Catavellani, then smaller tribes from the marshlands, then warbands with no tribal loyalty left, just pure hatred for Rome. It's like watching a dam break. 20 years of submission cracking all at once. Every grievance, every humiliation, every family destroyed by Roman greed suddenly has a voice, has a leader, has a chance for payback. Boudicca doesn't even have to recruit anymore. They come to her. Warriors, farmers, slaves who've slipped their chains. Old men who remember freedom. Young men who've never known it. All hungry for Roman blood. The Romans see none of this. Oh, they get reports. Tribal gatherings. Unusual movement. But they file it under business as usual in the provinces. These bureaucrats have never fought a real war. Never seen what happens when an entire people decides they'd rather die than kneel. They think Britain is pacified, domesticated, like a beaten dog that's learned its place. They're about to discover the difference between submission and preparation. The Britons haven't been learning to obey, they've been learning to hate. And hate is patient. Boudicca moves her growing army in stages. Never more than a few hundred in one place. Never on main roads where Roman patrols might notice. Through forests, along ancient tracks their grandfathers used before Rome carved its straight lines across the landscape. It's brilliant strategy. You don't mass an army in ancient times, you grow one, like a cancer, cell by cell, until suddenly you're everywhere at once. And the beautiful thing, Romans think in terms of legions, organized units, professional soldiers. They don't know how to fight a people's war. 20 miles from Camulodunum, Boudicca makes her base camp. Hidden in thick woodland where Roman horses can't charge, Roman formations can't form up properly. Her daughters help coordinate the arrival of new war bands. These girls have grown up fast, had to, has a way of burning childhood out of you. But look what's risen from those ashes, not broken victims, war leaders. They know every clan chief's name, every warrior's skill, every grudge that needs settling. 3 generations of royal women, all united by one simple truth: Rome must pay. The war bands keep growing. 40,000 now. 50. 60. Numbers that haven't been seen in Britain since the invasion 20 years ago. But this is different. Back then, tribes fought each other as much as Rome. Classic divide and conquer. Now they've got one enemy, one target, one chance to drive the eagles back across the sea. Boudicca walks among them at night, talks to the warriors around their fires, listens to their stories, their losses, their dreams of revenge. She's not just their queen anymore. She's their voice, their fury made flesh. Weapons sharpen on whetstones, war paint mixes in clay bowls, chariots get fitted with scythe blades that will cut down Roman infantry like wheat. The Britons know they can't fight Rome's way, can't match their discipline, their armor, their training, but they don't need to. They just need to hit fast, hit hard, and disappear before the legions can respond. Urban warfare, house to house, street to street, turn Camulodunum into a maze of death, where Roman formations mean nothing, where local knowledge beats professional training, where fury trumps discipline. Final night before the attack. Boudicca can't sleep, neither can her daughters, neither can most of the warriors. Tomorrow they cross a line there's no coming back from. Win or lose, after tomorrow the die is cast. Either they drive Rome from Britain, or they all die trying. No middle ground, no negotiation, no mercy asked or given. The campfires burn low, weapons lie ready, the forest holds its breath. Even the night birds have gone quiet, as if the whole world knows what's coming, as if even the gods are watching. Dawn breaks grey and cold. Mist rises from the marshes like the ghosts of ancient Britain. Boudicca stands before her army. 70,000 warriors now, maybe more, faces painted for war, eyes burning with 20 years of stored fury. She doesn't need to give a speech. They all know why they're here. They all know what happens next. The queen climbs into her war chariot. Her daughters beside her. The scythe blades catch the first light like silver fire. Behind them, the greatest British army since the Roman conquest. Ready to remind the world what happens when you push a people too far. The war horns sound, deep haunting notes that echo through the forest and across the marshlands. Notes their ancestors heard at Maiden Castle, at Mona, at every last stand against the eagles. But this isn't a last stand. This is the first strike back. Camulodunum lies ahead, fat and lazy and completely unprepared. Roman settlers sleeping off last night's wine, veterans dreaming of past glories, officials counting today's taxes, none of them knowing that their world is about to end, that the tide of fury has finally reached their door, that Boudicca is coming. Chapter 6. The Fall of Camulodunum. Boudicca's army moves like a storm across the British countryside. 100,000 warriors, maybe more. Word spreads ahead of them, villages emptying, Roman patrols fleeing south. But in Camulodunum, the jewel of Roman Britain, life continues as normal. Market stalls, bathhouses, citizens arguing over grain prices. They have no idea what's coming, no idea that their world is about to end in blood and fire. Camulodunum, modern-day Colchester, first Roman capital of Britain. Gleaming white temples, paved streets, aqueducts bringing fresh water from miles away. A perfect Roman city, dropped into the British wilderness. The locals call it something else entirely. They remember what stood here before Rome came. Sacred groves, ancient burial grounds, all bulldozed to make room for Roman glory. That's what Boudicca's army sees as they crest the final hill. Their stolen past, turned into Roman marble. Here's what's terrifying about this moment. Camulodunum has no walls. None. Why would it need them? The legions are out conquering Wales. The locals are pacified, or so the Romans think. A few retired soldiers live here with their British wives. Some merchants, government officials, maybe 8,000 people total. They've built a paradise, with no way to defend it. Boudicca's scouts see this from the hills. No walls, no garrison. It's not a siege, it's a slaughter waiting to happen. The attack comes at dawn, not the disciplined advance of Roman legions. This is something primal, war horns echoing across the valley, thousands of painted warriors pouring down the hillsides like water, chariots racing ahead, wheels throwing up clouds of dust. The sound alone, imagine it, thunder that doesn't stop, the ground shaking under 100,000 feet. In Camulodunum, people wake to find their world ending. Some think it's an earthquake. Then they see the smoke rising from the outer settlements. Panic spreads faster than fire. Roman merchants dropping their wares, running for boats that aren't there. Families grabbing children, not knowing which way to flee. The retired soldiers try to organize some kind of defense, with kitchen knives and gardening tools. It's pathetic and heartbreaking at the same time. These are people who thought Rome would protect them forever. Now they're learning what every other conquered people already knows. Rome protects Rome. Everyone else, you're on your own. Boudicca's warriors pour into the streets like a flood of fury. Spears, swords, axes, some fighting naked, except for blue paint, because that's how their ancestors fought. This isn't just warfare, it's ritual, sacred revenge for everything Rome has taken. Every family separated, every sacred grove cut down, every young girl dragged off to warm some Roman's bed. All of that rage focused on this one perfect Roman city. The slaughter is absolute. No prisoners, no mercy, no quarter given. The Temple of Claudius becomes the final refuge. Massive stone walls, bronze doors, a few hundred survivors barricade themselves inside. Romans, friendly Britons, anyone who can't escape. They have food for maybe 2 days, water from a sacred spring. Outside, they can hear the city burning. Screams, war cries, the crash of buildings collapsing. Some pray to Roman gods, others to British ones. Desperate people making desperate bargains with whatever divine power might listen. None of them answer. Boudicca's forces surround the temple like hunters around trapped prey. No rush, no desperate assault. They have time, they have numbers, they can wait. Some warriors dance around fires built from Roman furniture, others sharpen weapons on Roman tombstones. The psychological warfare is deliberate. Let the trapped Romans hear their city dying around them. Let them understand what terror feels like. Let them know how it felt to be British helpless under Roman rule. Now the roles are reversed. The siege lasts 2 days. On the morning of the 3rd day, the bronze doors give way. What happens next? The Roman historians barely describe it. Too horrific, too shameful. They use words like massacre and atrocity, then move on quickly. But you can read between the lines. Nobody walked out of that temple alive, not the Roman officials who ordered British girls flogged, not their wives, not their children. War has its own logic. Boudicca's justice has no exceptions. When the killing ends, the burning begins. Systematic destruction. Every Roman building, every symbol of occupation, the forum where British chiefs were forced to bow, the baths where Roman citizens relaxed while slaves served them, the shops selling British grain to Roman stomachs, all of it fuel for the flames. Boudicca's warriors work methodically, turning Rome's perfect city into ash and rubble. Archaeologists can still see this destruction layer, burned earth, melted metal, the scar of British rage. But victory has a price. Some of Boudicca's warriors have never seen a Roman city before. The wealth shocks them. Gold cups, silk clothes, spiced wine, luxuries their grandchildren couldn't imagine. This is what Rome built with British taxes, British labour, British blood. The rage burns hotter now, but so does something else. Greed, confusion. Some warriors pause to loot instead of fight. That pause will cost them later. Success is making them slower, hungrier, less disciplined. Word spreads across Britain like wildfire. Camulodunum is gone, erased. Every Roman in the city is dead. The impossible has happened. Rome can bleed. Rome can die. Villages that trembled at the sight of a single Roman patrol now send warriors to join Boudicca's army. Young men grab whatever weapons they can find. Old men remember stories of free Britain. Women kiss their sons goodbye, knowing this might be their only chance to throw off the Roman yoke forever. But in distant Wales, Governor Suetonius receives the news like a hammer blow. His legions are scattered. His capital is ash. His reputation, maybe his life, hangs by a thread. Emperor Nero doesn't forgive failure. Suetonius has 2 choices: run back to Rome and blame someone else, or turn around with whatever forces he has and try to salvage this disaster. He's a Roman general. Running isn't an option. The legions begin their march south. The real war is just beginning. Camulodunum burns for 3 days. The smoke can be seen for 50 miles. When it finally dies, nothing remains but blackened stone and bitter ash. 8,000 Romans and British allies dead. An entire city erased. Boudicca's revenge is just starting. Next target, Londinium, the trading heart of Roman Britain, a city full of merchants and moneylenders, a city that's grown fat on British suffering. If Camulodunum was the symbol of Roman power, Londinium is the symbol of Roman greed. Chapter 7. A Path of Destruction. Camulodunum is gone. Completely gone. The smoke still rises from where Rome's first capital in Britain used to stand. And Boudicca's warriors? They're not celebrating. They're not drunk on victory. They're hungry for more. Because here's what happens when you cross that line, when you actually burn down a Roman city and slaughter everyone inside. There's no going back, no negotiating, no mercy. They've tasted Roman blood now, and they want more of it. Word travels fast in ancient Britain, especially news this big. Runners are already spreading the story across the tribal networks. The impossible has happened. Rome bled, Rome burned, Rome ran, and suddenly, every oppressed tribe, every beaten-down village, every family that's lost sons to Roman slavery, they're all looking toward Boudicca. Her army isn't just growing, it's exploding. Warriors are coming from everywhere, some bringing weapons, some bringing just anger, all bringing hope. Boudicca knows this moment won't last forever. She's got maybe weeks, maybe less, before Suetonius gets back from Wales with his legions. So she's not wasting time on victory speeches or elaborate funeral rites for Camulodunum's victims. She's moving fast, southwest toward Londinium, the trading hub, the merchant city, the beating heart of Roman commerce in Britain. If Camulodunum was Rome's political statement, Londinium is Rome's wallet, and Boudicca's about to empty it. Picture this army on the move. It's not neat Roman columns marching in formation. It's a river of rage flowing across the countryside, chariots thundering ahead, warriors on foot streaming behind, camp followers, families, kids even, because this isn't just military campaign anymore. This is migration, exodus, an entire people saying no more and backing it up with bronze and iron. The ground literally shakes as they pass. You can feel them coming from miles away. Meanwhile, in Londinium, the first refugees are stumbling into town, burned, bleeding, babbling about armies of painted warriors and cities turned to ash. The Roman merchants listen to these stories, and they don't believe them, can't believe them. Camulodunum destroyed? Impossible. These people must be confused, traumatized, exaggerating. But then more refugees arrive, and more, all telling the same impossible story. The Romans' confidence starts cracking, then crumbling, then turning to something they haven't felt in Britain: fear. The Roman officials in Londinium are in full panic mode now. But here's their problem. They've got no real authority, no significant military force, just clerks and tax collectors and merchants who suddenly realize they've been living in enemy territory pretending it was home. They send desperate messages to anyone who might help. But Suetonius is in Wales. The nearest legion is days away. The navy's scattered. They're alone, completely, utterly alone, and Boudicca's army is 3 days out. This is where Boudicca shows she's not just a warrior queen, she's a strategic genius. She could rush straight to Londinium, hit them while they're panicking and disorganized. Instead, she's taking her time, methodical, letting the fear build, letting the terror spread ahead of her like a plague, because she understands something the Romans forgot. Sometimes the idea of violence is more powerful than violence itself. Sometimes letting your enemies imagine what's coming is worse than just showing up. Watch how she moves her forces. Not like a mob, like a general. Scouts ranging ahead, securing river crossings, supply lines organized, as much as possible with a moving city of 100,000 people. Messages going back and forth between tribal commanders. This isn't chaos. This is coordination. She's proven she can destroy a city. Now she's proving she can command an army. The Romans always underestimated British tactical ability. Big mistake. This woman learned warfare from birth. 2 days out from Londinium now. The Roman evacuation has started, but it's pathetic. Carts loaded with coins and records and precious goods, heading north toward whatever safety they can find. Some Romans are staying, convinced the walls will hold. Others are fleeing so fast they're abandoning everything. Wives separated from husbands, kids lost in the chaos, the entire Roman civilian population learning what every Briton already knew. Sometimes there's nowhere to run. Sometimes the violence finds you anyway. Londinium's walls aren't built for this. They were designed to keep out bandits and wild animals, not 100,000 warriors with siege experience and nothing left to lose. The gates are solid oak reinforced with iron. Sure, but the walls are barely 12 feet high in places. There's no significant garrison, no artillery, no stores laid up for siege. It's a merchant town pretending to be a fortress, and Boudicca's army specializes in turning Roman pretensions into Roman funeral pyres. One day out, you can see the smoke from their campfires now. Not the smoke of destruction yet, just the normal cooking fires of an army that's taken its time, eaten well, slept properly. They're not desperate anymore, not running on pure rage like they were at Camulodon. They're confident, professional, methodical, which somehow makes them more terrifying. A mob you might reason with. An army just executes its mission, and Boudicca's mission is very, very clear. The sound reaches Londinium before the sight does. Drums, war horns, the thunder of 10,000 feet and 1,000 chariot wheels. Then the dust cloud appears on the southern horizon, growing, spreading, blotting out the afternoon sun like a storm front. The few Roman defenders left on the walls just stare, because what do you do when the entire British countryside has organized itself into an army and pointed itself at your city? What do you do when your worst nightmares march up and introduce themselves? They come to a stop just outside arrow range, Boudicca's entire host spreading out like a crescent moon around Londinium's southern approach, standards flying, weapons glinting, painted warriors shoulder to shoulder as far as you can see in both directions. And there, in the center, on her war chariot, Boudicca herself, close enough now that the Romans on the walls can see her face, can see the scars from her flogging, can see the fury that brought them all to this moment. Night falls over two armies staring at each other across a few hundred yards of grass. Londinium's gates are barred, guards are doubled, prayers are whispered to Roman gods who feel very, very far away tonight. And in the British camp, weapons are sharpened, stories are told, plans are made. Tomorrow, when the sun rises, Boudicca will finish what Rome started when they flogged a queen and violated her daughters. Tomorrow, Londinium burns. Tonight, they wait. Chapter 8. Londinium razes to the ground. The news from Camulodunum hits Londinium like a physical blow. 3 days of smoke on the horizon. Refugees stumbling in with stories that sound impossible. An entire Roman city, gone, wiped clean off the earth. But here's what the survivors in Londinium don't know yet. Boudicca isn't done. Her army, drunk on victory and blood, is already moving, 80 miles south, through forests that have never seen Roman boots, straight toward them, and Suetonius, still fighting druids in Wales. Londinium in 60 AD isn't the London you know. It's barely 20 years old. A trading post that got lucky, wooden buildings crowded along the Thames, maybe 8,000 people on a good day. Roman merchants, British workers, families who thought they'd found safety in the empire's embrace. No walls, no garrison worth mentioning, just a bridge, some warehouses, and the growing realization that they're completely, utterly defenseless. The kind of defenseless that makes your stomach drop when you understand what's coming. Governor Suetonius gets the message while he's burning sacred groves on Anglesey. His aide's face tells the story before words do. Camulodunum destroyed, every soul dead. Boudicca's army grown to, the messenger swallows hard, maybe 100,000. Suetonius stares at the report. He's got two choices: march his legions back to save Londinium, or finish what he started here. The Druids watch from their chains. They know exactly what this Roman general is thinking, and they're smiling. Here's the calculation Suetonius makes. Cold, Roman, brutal. Londinium can't be defended. Not with what he's got. Not against those numbers. Better to let it burn and regroup with his full strength later. Write off 8,000 lives to save the province. It's the math of empire. The kind of decision that haunts you forever, even when it's right, especially when it's right. He orders his fastest riders south with evacuation warnings. But he doesn't follow. He stays to finish the Druids. The evacuation notice reaches Londinium, like a death sentence. Pack what you can carry. Leave now. The governor's legions won't be coming. You're on your own. Some flee immediately. Families loading carts heading south toward the coast. But thousands stay. Where would they go? This is home. This is everything they've built. They board up shops, hide valuables, pray to gods both Roman and British. They don't realize they're choosing how they want to die, quickly running or slowly hiding. When Boudicca's army finally appears, it's like watching the horizon catch fire. Smoke from their torches, dust from 100,000 feet, war cries that make the Thames itself seem to shiver. The Queen rides at the front in her war chariot, daughters beside her, hair streaming, spears glinting. Behind her, tribe after tribe, Iceni, Trinovantes, others who've joined the rebellion. They crest the hill overlooking Londinium and stop, just stop, letting the terror sink in, letting the city understand what's about to happen. The attack begins at dawn, not with strategy or siege engines, with pure, unleashed fury. Warriors pouring down the hillsides like a flood, through the streets, over the bridge, into every building they can find. This isn't war anymore, it's retribution. Payment in blood for daughters violated, for land stolen, for 20 years of bowing to Rome. The few Roman soldiers left try to form ranks. They last maybe 5 minutes. After that, it's just hunting, and Londinium becomes a killing ground. The fires start before the killing stops. Torches thrown through windows, oil poured on wooden walls. Within hours, half the city is burning. Smoke so thick you can't see 10 feet. People running blind through streets they've known for years, choking on ash, trying to find escape routes that don't exist. The Thames reflects orange flames. Even the water seems to burn. And through it all, war cries echoing off stone walls that will soon be rubble. This is Camelodunum all over again, but bigger. What happens in those streets, it's hard to talk about. Not because the details are lost to history, because they're too vivid. Archaeologists have found the destruction layer, scorched earth, collapsed buildings, and yes, human remains. Families who died together, people who almost made it out. The rebellion has become something else now, something that can't be stopped or reasoned with. 20 years of humiliation pouring out all at once, and Londinium is paying the price for every Roman cruelty ever inflicted on British soil. By the third day, there's nothing left to burn. Londinium is gone, not damaged, not conquered, erased. Buildings collapsed into themselves, bodies in the streets, the bridge over the Thames, partially destroyed, its wooden planks floating downstream like funeral pyres. 8,000 people lived here 3 days ago. Now the only sounds are crackling embers and ravens. Boudicca's warriors search through the ruins for anything worth taking, but mostly they just stare at what they've done, the complete extinction of a Roman city. The destruction is so thorough it leaves archaeologists speechless 2,000 years later. A layer of red clay and ash they call the Boudiccan destruction horizon. You can see it in London today if you know where to look. Museum of London has pieces, melted glass, warped metal, charred wood, physical proof of 3 days when the Roman world almost ended in Britain. When a British queen proved that empires aren't invincible, they just think they are, until someone like Boudicca shows them otherwise. 2 cities now, Camelodunum and Londinium, both wiped from existence within weeks. Maybe 15,000 Romans and British allies dead. For Boudicca's army, each victory feeds the next. They're unstoppable now, invincible. The gods themselves seem to favour their cause. Rome's entire presence in Britain is crumbling, and there's still one more city on their list, Verulamium, modern St. Albans, another Roman settlement full of people who thought empire meant safety. They're about to learn how wrong they were, how catastrophically, fatally wrong. But here's what Boudicca doesn't know. As she leads her army away from Londinium's smouldering ruins, Suetonius has finished with the Druids. His legions are already marching south. Not to save cities, it's too late for that. To end this rebellion once and for all, 2 forces now heading toward each other across the British countryside. 100,000 warriors drunk on victory. 2 hardened Roman legions with something to prove. When they meet, only one will survive. and that meeting is coming soon. The smoke from Londinium rises for days, visible for miles in every direction, a black column reaching toward the sky like an offering to vengeful gods. Roman citizens throughout Britain see it and understand. The rules have changed. The empire can be beaten. Cities can burn. Safety is an illusion. But somewhere in that smoke there's also a warning. For Boudicca, for her army, for everyone who thinks this rebellion can't be stopped. Rome doesn't forgive. Rome doesn't forget. And Rome is coming. Chapter 9. Verulamium. The third city falls. The road to Verulamium stretches before Boudicca's army like a scar across the landscape. Dust clouds mark their passage, thousands of feet, wheels, hooves beating the earth into submission. Her warriors move with grim efficiency now. No wild celebrations, no victory songs, just the steady, relentless march of an army that's learned how to destroy cities. Camulodunum burned. Londinium burned. Now Verulamium waits. The pattern repeats itself, and everyone knows what comes next. News travels fast when cities die. Refugees from Londinium stumbled into Verulamium days ago, hollow-eyed, smoke-stained, babbling about streets running red. The terror spreads faster than Boudicca's army. Market stalls abandoned, houses barricaded, families loading wagons with whatever they can carry. But where do you run when the whole province is burning? Some Romans pack gold and flee south. Others just wait, paralyzed by the inevitability of it all. The Queen is coming. Everyone knows what that means now. There's something almost mechanical about it now. The way Boudicca's scouts fan out around the settlement. The way her warriors form their lines. They've done this twice before. Same tactics. Same grim determination. Same result waiting at the end. But something's different this time. You can see it in their faces. The wild fury that carried them through Camulodunum has dulled to something harder, more methodical. They're not just angry anymore. They're tired. Killing is exhausting work, even righteous killing. Verulamium's defenders know they're doomed. A handful of Roman auxiliaries, some local militia, citizens with kitchen knives and farming tools, against an army that just erased 2 cities from existence. You can almost hear them asking the same question every doomed garrison asks. Why are we even trying? But they try anyway, because that's what people do when the alternative is worse than fighting. They close the gates, man the walls, wait for the storm to break over them. The attack comes at dawn, not with wild battle cries this time, but with the quiet efficiency of butchers going to work. Boudicca's warriors scale the walls in silence, open the gates from inside, pour through the streets like a dark tide. The resistance crumbles in minutes. It's almost anticlimactic after the epic siege of Londinium. But that's how it goes. The third time, even revolution becomes routine. Another city, another slaughter, another column of smoke rising into the grey British sky. The flames start before noon. Roman temples first, always the temples. Then the administrative buildings, the forum, the houses of Roman colonists and collaborators. Verulamium burns with the same methodical thoroughness as the others. But watch Boudicca's warriors closely now. They're going through the motions, looting, killing, destroying, but there's less joy in it, less savage satisfaction. The novelty of revenge has worn thin. What's left is just work, bloody exhausting work that has to be done. By evening Verulamium is gone. Another Roman settlement reduced to charred timber and scattered stones. Another few thousand dead added to the tally. The archaeological record will show the same destruction layer here, that black line of ash and debris that marks where cities die. But archaeology can't capture the weariness creeping into Boudicca's army. The way conversations die out around campfires, the way warriors stare into flames instead of celebrating. Victory tastes different the third time around. Bitter, hollow. The wounded tell their own story, more this time than after Londinium. Not from enemy action, but from exhaustion. Twisted ankles, pulled muscles, men collapsing from sheer fatigue. The human body wasn't built to sustain this level of violence indefinitely. Neither was the human spirit. You can see it in their eyes, that 1,000-yard stare that comes when you've seen too much death, when righteous anger starts curdling into something else, something darker and more complicated. The count begins at sunset. Bodies in the streets, heads on spears, Romans, Briton collaborators. anyone who chose the wrong side. The numbers are smaller this time. Verulamium wasn't as large as Londinium or Camulodunum, maybe 3,000 dead instead of 20. But 3,000 is still 3,000, still mothers and fathers and children who won't be going home. The arithmetic of revenge is simple. The emotional cost, that's getting more complex by the day. Some of her warriors are starting to ask questions. Quietly, around the edges of camp. When did justice become slaughter? When did liberation become annihilation? These aren't Roman soldiers they're killing anymore. These are shopkeepers, craftsmen, families who just happened to be in the wrong place when history came calling. Boudicca hears the whispers, sees the doubt creeping in, but she pushes it down, pushes them forward, because once you start a war like this, how do you stop? Boudicca stands in the ruins of Verulamium's forum. As night falls, ash drifts down like snow. The smell of smoke and death clings to everything. 3 cities now, 3 victories, but victories over what? Defenseless settlements, civilians who never raised a sword against her. This isn't war anymore, it's systematic extermination, and somewhere deep in her heart she knows it. But her daughter's screams still echo in her memory. Some wounds are too deep for mercy, some wrongs too great for proportion. The price of rebellion is being paid in British blood too, not just in battle, but in the slow erosion of souls. Her warriors came to her as farmers and hunters and craftsmen. Now there's something else, something harder, necessary maybe, but different. War changes everyone it touches, even the righteous, even the justified, even queens who started with pure intentions and daughters to avenge. The cost isn't just in Roman lives, it's in what they're all becoming. 3 cities, 70,000 dead. The rebellion has exceeded even Boudicca's wildest hopes, but success brings its own burdens. Her army is bloated now, maybe 100,000 strong, too big to feed, too unwieldy to control, and Governor Suetonius is racing back from Wales with his legions. The easy victories are over. Ahead lies the real test, not against defenseless civilians, but against Rome's professional killers. The warriors sense it coming, the reckoning they've been dreading since this all began. Around the dying fires, her war chiefs gather. Time for decisions. Do they press on, hunt down Suetonius before he can organize a defense? Or do they consolidate, fortify, try to hold what they've taken? The easy answer would be to stop now, declare victory and go home. But Boudicca knows better. Rome doesn't forgive, doesn't forget. They've crossed a line there's no coming back from. The only way out is through, forward into darkness, or defeat. The choice isn't really a choice at all. Chapter 10. An Empire Strikes Back. The messenger finds Suetonius on the slopes of Mount Snowdon. Roman legions still mopping up Druid resistance when the breathless rider delivers news that changes everything. 3 cities burned, 70,000 dead. Boudicca's army, possibly 100,000 strong, and heading his way. Most commanders would panic. Suetonius? He's been waiting for this his entire career. This is why Rome trained him. This is why they sent him to Britain. Time to remind these Britons what a real war looks like. 47 years old, 25 years of warfare behind him. Suetonius has seen everything the Empire's enemies can throw at legions. Germanic tribes in endless forests, African cavalry charges, mountain ambushes in Spain. But this is different. Not because Boudicca's dangerous, though she absolutely is. It's different because if he loses here, Rome loses Britain, forever. The pressure would break other men. For Suetonius, it's just Tuesday. He's been preparing for impossible odds since he was 17. First decision, abandon everything. Every fort, every settlement, every defensible position between Wales and wherever he chooses to fight. His officers think he's lost his mind. Sir, we have perfectly good fortifications. No, wrong thinking. Fortifications are death traps when you're outnumbered 50-1. They pin you down, let the enemy surround you, starve you out. Suetonius wants mobility. He wants to choose his ground, choose his moment. Make Boudicca come to him on his terms, not hers. See, here's what most people miss about Roman military genius. It's not just discipline and training, though those matter. It's the thinking, the cold calculation. Suetonius knows exactly what he's facing. Massive numbers, high morale, righteous fury, strengths that would terrify most commanders. But fury makes you reckless, numbers make you overconfident, and righteousness, that makes you predictable. Every advantage Boudicca thinks she has, Suetonius is already 3 moves ahead, turning them into weaknesses. The retreat looks like panic to everyone watching. British scouts report Roman abandonment with glee. Suetonius pulling back, giving up territory, looking desperate. Perfect. That's exactly what he wants them thinking. Every mile he retreats, he's calculating terrain features, supply lines, escape routes, not for himself, for Boudicca. He's herding her toward the killing ground he already has in mind, a place where her 100,000 becomes a liability instead of an asset. His legions trust him completely. They've seen this before. The calm orders, the methodical planning, the way he studies maps by lamplight while other commanders sleep. 14th Gemina, 20th Valeria, battle-hardened veterans who followed him through hell already. They don't need speeches about glory or empire. They know what's coming. They know their commander. When Suetonius says, "Here's where we make our stand," they start digging without questions. This is what professional armies look like. But the pressure's real. Rome doesn't forgive failure, especially not failure this spectacular. Lose here, and it's not just his career, it's his life. Emperor Nero already suspicious of successful generals. Add lost an entire province to the mix. Suetonius knows he's fighting for more than Britain. He's fighting for his family's survival back in Rome. Failure means exile if he's lucky, execution if he's not. The stakes couldn't be higher, and everyone knows it. Intelligence reports keep arriving, Boudicca's army growing daily, tribes from across Britain abandoning their fields, grabbing weapons, joining the revolt, the momentum building like a landslide. But Suetonius notices details others miss. No siege equipment, minimal cavalry, families travelling with the war bands. This isn't just an army, it's a migration. A people convinced they're about to witness Rome's final defeat. Their confidence will be their weakness. He just has to survive long enough to exploit it. Night planning sessions with his staff. Maps spread across camp tables. Terrain models built from dirt and stones. Every approach studied, every angle calculated. His officers finally beginning to see the genius. The position he's chosen, it's perfect. Narrow frontage that negates British numbers, high ground for his archers, thick forest behind them, preventing encirclement. And, this is the brilliant part, only one way for Boudicca to attack. She'll have to come straight up the hill, into concentrated Roman firepower. The psychological warfare starts early. Suetonius knows British morale is everything. Strip that away and the numbers don't matter. So he lets rumours spread. Roman reinforcements arriving, secret weapons, divine favour, most of it nonsense. But doubt is poison in an army held together by shared fury. Meanwhile, his own men sharpen swords, check armour, write letters home they might never send. Professional soldiers preparing for professional work. No drama, no speeches, just deadly preparation. The final march begins at dawn. 2 columns of Roman steel moving through British countryside that still smells like smoke from burned cities. Suetonius rides at the front, studying every hill, every stream. His chosen ground waits ahead. A place that looks innocuous to untrained eyes but spells doom for anyone foolish enough to attack it head-on. Behind him, 10,000 men who've never lost a battle. Ahead, 100,000 Britons who've never faced a real fight. Both armies converge like storm fronts. British scouts report Roman positions with growing unease. Something's wrong. The Romans aren't panicking. They're not running. They're waiting, organised, confident. Meanwhile, Boudicca's massive host spreads across the valley floor like a human sea. Warriors painted for battle, chariots wheeling, war cries echoing off the hills. It should be intimidating. To Suetonius, watching from his ridge, it looks exactly like what he ordered for breakfast. Perfect target practice. The morning of battle arrives grey and cold. Mist rising from the valley floor where Boudicca's army assembles. Roman legions already in formation, silent as death, waiting on their ridge. 2 completely different ideas about warfare about to collide. Righteous fury versus calculated violence. Tribal courage versus professional killing. The fate of Roman Britain hanging in the balance. Suetonius gives his final orders. His trap is set. Now all he needs is for Boudicca to walk into it. This is the moment. Everything that's happened, the flogging, the the burned cities, the 70,000 dead. It all leads here, to this valley, this morning, these two armies facing each other across a few hundred yards of British grass. Suetonius has calculated every angle, anticipated every move. Boudicca has the righteous cause and overwhelming numbers. Only one can survive the next few hours. The most consequential battle in British history is about to begin, and somebody's about to learn what real warfare looks like. Two armies face each other across a field somewhere in Britain. We still don't know exactly where. Could be Watling Street, could be Angelo, could be Mancussa, but location doesn't matter now. What matters is this. On one side, maybe 10,000 Roman legionaries, disciplined, battle-tested, shields locked, spears ready. On the other side, Boudicca's horde, 100,000 warriors, maybe more, men, women, children, all of them screaming for Roman blood. Both sides know this, decides everything, win or lose Britain forever. Suetonius sits his horse behind the Roman lines. This is it, everything he's trained for, everything Rome stands for. He's outnumbered 10-1, maybe worse. His men know it. They can hear the British war cries echoing across the field, feel the ground shaking under thousands of feet. But Roman discipline runs deep. These aren't just soldiers. They're the machine that conquered the world, and they've faced worse odds before. At least Suetonius hopes they have. His hands are steady, his voice calm. Inside, terror. Boudicca's army stretches beyond sight. Iceni warriors painted blue and screaming. Trinovantes with their long spears. Fighters from tribes whose names Rome never bothered to learn. They came for revenge. They came because a queen was flogged and her daughters were, because their lands were stolen, their people enslaved. This isn't just battle. This is reckoning. Behind them, wagons full of families who came to watch Rome die. Victory feast already planned. Spoils already divided. They can taste Roman defeat. It's so close they can touch it. The Roman formation is perfect. Textbook, 3 lines deep. First rank with shields up and short swords ready. Second rank with javelins. Third rank waiting, cavalry on the flanks. Not much cavalry, but enough. Suetonius chose his ground well. Narrow front, woods on both sides. The Britons can't use their numbers, can't surround them, have to come straight ahead into Roman steel. It's brilliant tactics, but tactics only work if your men don't break. And right now, some of these legionaries are questioning their life choices. The charge begins with a roar that shakes the earth. 100,000 voices screaming as one. Boudicca's chariot leads the way, her daughters beside her, red hair streaming in the wind. Behind her, a tide of fury and bronze, spears bristling, shields painted with clan symbols, dogs running alongside warriors. This is how Celts fight. Wild, terrifying, overwhelming. The Romans have seen barbarian charges before, but nothing like this. Nothing this massive, this desperate, this personal. The ground trembles. The sky darkens with thrown spears. History holds its breath. The first impact is pure chaos. British warriors slam into Roman shields like a human tsunami. The sound is incredible. Metal on metal, wood splintering, men screaming. For a moment, the Roman line bends. Shields crack under the pressure. Some legionaries step back. This is the moment. If the line breaks now, it's over. Rome loses Britain. But Roman training runs deeper than fear. Shields lock, swords thrust. The machine holds, barely. The second wave hits before they can recover. Then the third, each impact testing Roman discipline against British rage. Here's where Roman discipline starts to show. While the Britons hack and slash with wild fury, the Romans fight like they trained. Shield up, stab, step forward, shield up, stab, step forward. No wasted motion, no heroics, just methodical killing. It's horrifying to watch. The Britons are brave, desperately brave. They're fighting for their children, their freedom, their honor. But bravery alone doesn't win battles. Training does, experience does, and the Romans have both. Slowly, impossibly, the tide begins to turn. Celtic fury meets Roman steel. Steel wins. The turning point comes when the Roman cavalry hits the British flanks. Not a huge force, but enough. Organized, coordinated. While the Britons focus on breaking the center, Roman horsemen sweep around the edges. Suddenly, warriors who thought they were attacking find themselves attacked. Confusion spreads through the British ranks. Commands get lost in the chaos. This is the problem with huge armies. Hard to control, hard to coordinate. The Romans planned for this, drilled for this. The Britons, they trusted in numbers and rage. Sometimes that's not enough. You can see it happening. The British advance slowing, then stopping, then retreat. Not organized retreat. Panic. Warriors who came to kill Romans suddenly realize they're dying instead. The lucky ones at the back start running first, then the middle ranks, then everyone. But here's the tragic part. Remember those wagons full of families, the ones who came to watch Rome burn? They're blocking the escape routes. Fathers fighting to save Britain can't flee because their wives and children are in the way. It becomes a massacre. This is where the story gets dark. Really dark. The Roman discipline that saved them in battle becomes ruthless efficiency and slaughter. They don't just defeat the Britons, they destroy them. Men, women, children. Everyone who came to see Roman defeat instead becomes part of British tragedy. Suetonius doesn't stop the killing. Can't stop it. Maybe. His men have been terrified for hours. Now they're relieved, angry, drunk on victory and survival. The field becomes a charnel house. Celtic courage dies under Roman swords. Boudicca sees it happening. Her great army dissolving like morning mist. Her people dying. Her daughters. We don't know what happens to her daughters. They vanish from history right here. Did they die in the battle? Escape? Get captured? Nobody knows. But Boudicca, she has choices. Surrender and face Roman chains. Fight to the death. Or take the third option. The one many Celtic nobles chose when defeat was certain. Poison. A warrior's exit. Death on her terms. Not Rome's. The woman who nearly drove Rome from Britain makes her final choice. The battlefield grows quiet. 80,000 dead, some sources say. Mostly Britons, mostly people who just wanted to be free. The wagons that came to carry Roman plunder now burn with British dreams. Suetonius walks among the carnage, probably wondering how it came to this. He saved Roman Britain, crushed the rebellion, proved Roman superiority. So why does victory feel so hollow? Maybe because he knows this wasn't just military defeat. This was the death of something. The last real chance for British freedom, for centuries. In the aftermath, Rome shows its true face. Not the civilized empire they claim to be, the revenge machine they actually are. Suetonius orders systematic destruction of any tribe that supported Boudicca. Villages burned, crops destroyed, people enslaved or killed. This isn't justice, this is terrorism. State-sponsored brutality designed to ensure no one ever rebels again. And it works. For 4 centuries, Britain stays Roman. But the cost is everything. Celtic Britain might have become roads and aqueducts built on broken dreams. So ends Boudicca's war. The woman who came closer than anyone to driving Rome from Britain lies dead, her army scattered, her people crushed. But here's the thing about defeat. Sometimes it plants seeds that bloom centuries later. Boudicca becomes legend, symbol of resistance, proof that even Rome could be challenged. Victorian England puts up statues to her. Modern feminists claim her. The woman who lost everything becomes immortal. Rome won the battle. But Boudicca? She won something else. She won the story. And sometimes that matters more. The roar is deafening. 100,000 British warriors pressed against barely 10,000 Romans. You'd think those numbers mean victory, right? Wrong. This is where everything goes sideways for Boudicca. The Romans aren't just standing there taking it. They're moving, shifting, and those legendary British numbers about to become their biggest weakness. What happens next will haunt Boudicca for the rest of her very short life. Picture this battlefield. British forces spread across the field like a human sea, swords raised, war cries echoing off the hills. Behind them, wagons full of families who came to watch Rome burn, confidence radiating from every warrior. Then you see the Romans, tight formation, silent, disciplined, Suetonius giving hand signals. His men have practiced 1,000 times. The Britons think they're watching a cornered animal. They're actually watching a trap snap shut. The Roman flanking movement starts so subtly, most British warriors don't even notice. While Boudicca's centre crashes against the Roman shields, auxiliary units slip around both sides. These aren't Roman legionnaires. These are Germanic and Gallic troops who know Celtic fighting styles inside and out. They've been waiting for this moment. The moment when British fury meets Roman calculation. The moment when numbers stop mattering and tactics take over. Now the British warriors on the edges start looking over their shoulders. Something's wrong. Those aren't more British reinforcements coming up behind them. Those are Romans, moving fast, weapons ready. The realization hits like cold water. They're surrounded. The great British army, stretched thin across the battlefield, suddenly finds itself trapped between Roman steel and Roman steel. Panic spreads faster than wildfire through dry grass. Chaos erupts through the British ranks. Warriors who moments ago were pushing forward now spin around, confused, desperate. Which way is the enemy? Which way is escape? The Romans planned this perfectly. British numbers mean nothing if you can't organize them. And organization? That's impossible when you're being hit from 3 directions at once. The disciplined Roman war machine is carving through confused, panicked warriors like a blade through cloth. The Roman tactical manual is playing out exactly as written. Pin the enemy center, hit the flanks, create confusion. Watch them destroy themselves trying to fight in multiple directions. British warriors are bumping into each other, swinging at shadows, trampling their own wounded. The Romans just keep their shield walls tight, their formations perfect, their movements coordinated. It's like watching a master chess player demolish someone who only knows how to brawl. Boudicca sees what's happening. This warrior queen who burned 3 Roman cities, who killed 70,000 Romans, who came so close to driving Rome from Britain entirely, she knows. Her chariot wheels through the chaos, trying to rally her forces. But how do you organize 100,000 panicked people while Romans are cutting through them methodically, relentlessly? Her voice carries, but fear carries further. The tide is turning against her. The first British warriors break and run. Not cowards, just people who can see death closing in from all sides. They sprint toward the wagons where their families wait. But even that escape route is compromised. Roman cavalry, held in reserve until this moment, thunder toward the wagon circle. Families who came to celebrate victory suddenly find themselves trapped in the slaughter. The proud British army is disintegrating before Boudicca's eyes. The retreat becomes a stampede. Thousands of British warriors, pressed together too tightly to use their weapons effectively, push toward any opening they can find. But the Romans control every opening. This isn't a battle anymore. This is a massacre. Bodies pile up against the wagons as families scramble over each other, desperate for any escape. The ground turns muddy with blood. Britain's great rebellion is drowning in its own panic. Roman pursuit is methodical, terrifying. They don't chase wildly like barbarians. They advance in formation, cutting down fleeing warriors with mechanical precision. No passion, no rage, just professional killers doing what they do best. Every step calculated to maximize British casualties while minimizing Roman losses. It's butchery disguised as military tactics. The difference between a mob and an army has never been clearer or more deadly. Somewhere in this nightmare, Boudicca realizes the truth. Her rebellion is over. Not just this battle, everything. The burned cities, the dead Romans, the months of victories, none of it matters now. She's watching her people die by the thousands. Her daughters are somewhere in this chaos. Her dreams of a free Britain are bleeding out in the mud. This warrior queen faces the hardest decision any leader can face. The cost of defeat is staggering. Roman historians will claim 80,000 British dead. Even if they're exaggerating by half, we're talking about genocide. Entire tribes wiped out, families destroyed. The rebellion that came so close to success is drowning in British blood. Boudicca's great gamble, her righteous fury, her quest for justice, it's all collapsing into tragedy. The Romans aren't just winning, they're making an example that will last centuries. Think about what this means. Britain's best shot at freedom, led by a warrior queen who had every reason to fight, who united tribes that had never cooperated before, who brought Rome to its knees. It's over. The implications ripple beyond this battlefield. Any future British resistance will remember this day. Remember what happens when you challenge Rome. Remember that sometimes righteous fury isn't enough against disciplined brutality. As the sun sets on this slaughter, Boudicca faces her final choice: surrender and face Roman justice, which means torture, slavery, for her and her daughters, or find another way out. The queen who refused to kneel when Romans flogged her, who turned grief into rage, who almost freed her people. She's not done fighting, but now she's fighting for something different. Not victory, not freedom, just a final act of defiance. The battle was over. Somewhere on that blood-soaked field between the Roman dead and the thousands upon thousands of fallen Britons, Boudicca knew it was finished. Her great army, scattered like leaves in winter wind, her rebellion, crushed beneath Roman boots. The legions would hunt her now, hunt her daughters, hunt what remained of her people. She'd gambled everything on this single moment. The fury that had burned inside her since that day they'd flogged her publicly, since they'd destroyed her daughters. She couldn't think about that now, just survival. Chapter 13. The Final Stand. Boudicca's Fate. The queen pulled her cloak tighter against the cold, her chariot, abandoned somewhere behind enemy lines. Her war paint, smeared with tears and dirt and blood that wasn't all hers. How many had followed her into this? 100,000 warriors who believed she could drive the Romans back into the sea. Fathers, sons, brothers, women who'd picked up spears to avenge their own daughters. All of them trusting her judgment. All of them gone now. The weight of that responsibility crushing her more than any defeat. You have to understand what this meant to her. Boudicca wasn't just a queen who'd lost a battle. She was a mother who'd failed to protect her children. A leader who'd led her people into slaughter. Every Celtic tribe that had joined her rebellion, their warriors were lying dead on that field. Their families would mourn tonight because she'd convinced them they could win. The Romans had discipline, armor, strategy. She'd had rage and numbers. Turns out, rage doesn't stop javelins. Numbers don't matter when you can't organize them properly. Her daughters were somewhere in the chaos. 2 teenage girls who'd suffered unspeakable things at Roman hands, who'd watched their mother's public flogging, who'd seen their father's will ignored, their kingdom stolen, their people brutalized. They'd followed her into this war because what choice did they have? Stay and face more Roman brutality, or fight and maybe, just maybe, find some justice. Now they were fugitives. If the Romans caught them, Boudicca knew exactly what would happen. She'd seen Roman justice before. It was why she'd started this war. The stories say she made it 3 days. 3 days of running through forests she'd known as a child, past villages that had sent their young men to follow her into battle. Some of those villages were empty now. Others watched her pass with eyes full of accusation, or maybe that was just her guilt talking. She'd promised them freedom. Instead, she'd brought them catastrophe. The Romans wouldn't just be content with victory. They'd want revenge for Camulodunum, for Londinium, for Verulamium, for the 70,000 Romans and British allies her army had killed. Picture her in those final hours. This woman who'd once stood before 100,000 warriors, who'd burned 3 Roman cities, who'd come closer than anyone to driving Rome from Britain. Now she's just another fugitive hiding in the woods, her red hair tangled, her royal robes torn and muddy. The woman who'd made Roman governors lose sleep, who'd forced Suetonius to abandon his campaign in Wales, who'd struck terror into the hearts of Roman colonists, reduced to this, running, hiding, knowing there was nowhere left to go. The Roman historians, they couldn't agree on how she died. Tacitus says illness took her. Cassius Dio claims she poisoned herself rather than face capture. Some accounts suggest she was wounded in the battle and died from those injuries days later. But here's the thing, does it matter exactly how? She was a Celtic warrior queen who'd seen her world destroyed, her daughters violated, her people enslaved. Whether sickness claimed her or she chose her own end, or wounds finished what Roman steel had started, the result was the same. Boudicca was gone. I think she chose poison. It fits her character, doesn't it? The woman who'd rather fight than submit, who'd turned personal tragedy into rebellion, who'd convinced an entire nation to rise up rather than accept injustice. When she realized there was no escape, no victory, no way to protect her daughters from what was coming, she took control of the one thing she had left, her own death. Celtic nobles carried poison for exactly this reason. Better to die free than live as Roman entertainment. Better to choose your own end than let your enemies write it. Think about her final thoughts. This woman who'd gone from peaceful client queen to avenging fury in a matter of weeks. Her husband Prasutagus had tried to protect their family by leaving half his kingdom to Rome. She'd tried to protect them through violence. Neither approach worked. The Romans took what they wanted anyway. Her daughters, we never learn their names, never discover their fates. They disappear from history completely after this point. Two teenage girls who'd survived watched their mother's rebellion, seen their people slaughtered, and then vanished forever into the historical void. Her death marked the end of something bigger than just one woman's life. The last real chance for British independence was dying with her. Oh, there'd be other rebellions over the centuries, other Celtic leaders who'd challenge Rome, but nothing like this. Nothing that came so close to succeeding. Boudicca had united tribes that had been enemies for generations. She'd built an army larger than anything Britain had seen since, maybe ever. She'd proven that Rome could bleed, could be beaten, could be driven back. And now that dream was dying in a forest clearing somewhere. The Romans found her body eventually. Had to. They needed proof she was dead. Needed to display her defeat to discourage future rebellions. But they never found treasure, never captured her daughters, never got the complete victory they wanted. In a way, she'd won something even in death. She'd denied them the spectacle of her capture, the triumph of parading her through Roman streets, the pleasure of deciding her fate. She'd kept that final dignity. The last act of defiance from a woman who'd spent her entire last months refusing to be a victim. What strikes me most is the silence that followed. For decades after, Roman writers barely mentioned her. Too dangerous, maybe. Too inspiring. Better to let her memory fade than risk creating a martyr. But Celtic bards, they remembered, passed down songs about the warrior queen who'd stood up to Rome, who'd avenged her daughters, who'd shown that even the mighty legions could be beaten. Her story survived in whispers and songs, in half-remembered tales told around fires on winter nights. Rome might have won the war, but they couldn't kill the memory. Her legacy is complicated. She killed thousands of innocent civilians, burned cities filled with families just trying to live their lives under Roman rule. Many of her victims were Britons who'd chosen to cooperate with Rome rather than fight. Women and children died in those flames she'd ordered lit. That's the cost of rebellion, isn't it? The line between resistance and revenge gets blurry. The difference between freedom fighter and terrorist depends on which side wins. History remembers her as a hero because we admire those who refuse to submit. But heroism always comes with a price. Somewhere in the forests of eastern England, Boudicca closed her eyes for the last time. A woman who'd lost everything and nearly taken Rome's British Empire with her, who'd turned personal trauma into political revolution, who'd shown that sometimes the victims can become the victors, even if only for a moment. Her daughter's fates unknown, her people scattered, her rebellion crushed. But her story would survive long enough to inspire others, long enough to become legend, long enough to prove that some things are worth dying for. Chapter 14. A Brutal Requiem. The battlefield goes quiet. Boudicca's dead, her daughters gone. But Suetonius, he's just getting started. What comes next isn't war anymore, it's punishment. Systematic, calculated, the kind that makes sure no British tribe ever thinks about rebellion again. Roman legions spread out across the countryside like a plague, village by village, farmstead by farmstead. They're not just conquering now, they're making examples, and the examples they make, they stick with people for generations. Think about the scale of this revenge. 3 entire Roman cities burned, 70,000 Romans and their allies slaughtered. The rebellion came closer to succeeding than anyone wants to admit. So the response? Biblical. Whole communities wiped out. Not just the warriors who fought, their families too. Their livestock, their grain stores burned, wells poisoned. It's ethnic cleansing with Roman efficiency. Suetonius wants to send a message that echoes through every British village for the next 50 years. And he succeeds. The specifics are hard to stomach. Roman soldiers don't just kill combatants. They hunt down anyone who might have supported the rebellion. Old men who gave food to Boudicca's warriors. Women who wove cloth for rebel camps. Children who carried messages. Entire bloodlines get erased. It's not enough to defeat the rebellion. They want to erase its memory. Make it like it never happened. Turn the very idea of British resistance into something that only brings death to your family. For the Britons who survive, imagine living through that. Your neighbour's gone, your chiefs executed, your sacred groves cut down, your gods forbidden. Everything that made you, either dead or driven underground. The psychological impact is staggering. This isn't just military defeat, it's cultural annihilation. And it works. For decades after, British tribes stay quiet, keep their heads down, pay their taxes. The rebellion's failure becomes a cautionary tale. Parents whisper to keep their children from getting ideas. But here's what's interesting about Suetonius. Even as he's orchestrating this bloodbath, he knows something has to change. You can't rule by terror forever, not efficiently anyway. So while his soldiers are burning villages, he's already thinking about what comes after. The rebellion taught Rome something important. Britain isn't Gaul. These tribes won't just roll over and accept Roman rule. They need a different approach. Stick, but also carrot. Fear and brutal examples, yes, but also reforms. The first change? Roman officials can't just rob British tribes blind anymore. The procurator system that lets Cetus Decianus seize Iceni lands and property, that gets reformed. New oversight, new limits, not because Rome suddenly grows a conscience, but because they realize greed creates resistance, and resistance costs money, lots of money. It's cheaper to let British client kings keep some dignity and wealth than to fight another rebellion that nearly throws you off the island entirely. They start treating British nobles differently too. Before Boudicca, Roman officials could humiliate tribal leaders with impunity. Flog a queen in public, royal daughters? Why not? They're just barbarians. But that attitude nearly cost Rome an entire province. So new rules emerge. British nobility gets protection under Roman law. Not equality, but protection. It's a calculated move. Give the chiefs enough status that rebellion becomes less attractive than collaboration. Smart politics wrapped in legal reform. Meanwhile, the land itself slowly heals. Forests grow back over burned villages. New settlements rise where old ones died. The scars remain. You can still see the destruction layers in archaeological digs today. Thick bands of ash and debris marking where Boudicca's rebellion ended and Roman rebuilding began. But life continues. Has to. British farmers plant crops in soil mixed with their ancestors' ashes. Roman colonists build new homes on foundations of Celtic roundhouses. History layers over history. What's haunting is how complete the archaeological evidence is. London, Colchester, Albans. In all three cities there's this distinct red layer of burned clay and debris from 60-61 AD. Below it you find Roman coins, pottery, jewellery. Above it, different pottery, different building styles, different people essentially. The rebellion literally divides British history into before and after. And the after, it's quieter, more subdued. Like the very earth remembers what happens when you challenge Rome too directly. The long-term reforms reshape Roman Britain completely. New limits on taxation, better legal protections for natives, more opportunities for British elites to join Roman society if they play by Roman rules. It's integration through incentive instead of pure domination. Give talented Britons a stake in the Roman system, and they stop wanting to burn it down. It works. For the next 3 centuries, no British rebellion comes close to Boudicca's scale. The reforms succeed where brutal force alone failed. The relationship between Romans and Britons fundamentally changes. Before the rebellion, Romans saw Britons as barely human, useful for slaves and tribute, nothing more. After, there's a grudging respect. These people nearly drove out the legions. That commands attention. So Roman policy shifts. Instead of pure extraction, they start investing in Britain. Roads, baths, theatres, towns. Turn the natives into Romans, and you don't have to worry about them wanting to kill you. Cultural conquest through architecture and lifestyle. And slowly the rebellious spirit cools. Not disappears, but transforms. British resistance goes underground. Becomes subtle, cultural rather than military. They keep their own gods but give them Roman names. Maintain tribal identities but express them through Roman frameworks. It's adaptation, survival. The fire of rebellion gets banked but not extinguished. Because you can't really kill the idea of freedom. You can just make the price of expressing it too high. And Rome made that price generationally high. What's lost in all this? It's staggering. An entire way of life. Celtic Britain before Roman rule was vibrant, complex, sophisticated in ways Rome didn't recognize. Druids who were scholars, judges, teachers, warrior women who led armies, tribal councils that made collective decisions, art that celebrated nature instead of conquest. Most of it vanishes, not immediately, but gradually. Each generation remembers less, speaks Latin more, thinks Roman thoughts. The rebellion's failure accelerates a cultural extinction that might have taken centuries otherwise. In the end, the requiem isn't just for Boudicca. It's for the Britain that died with her. The one where a widowed queen could raise an army of 100,000, where tribal honor meant more than Roman gold, where resistance felt possible, that Britain becomes a ghost, still there in the landscape, in old stone circles and hill forts, in stories parents whisper, but never again a living, breathing reality. The rebellion's failure ensures that. And maybe that was always inevitable. Chapter 15. Legacy of the Warrior Queen. Fast forward 2,000 years. Westminster Bridge, London. Bronze statue of a woman in a chariot. Horses rearing. Spear raised. Most people walk past without a second glance. Tourist buses pause for photos. But this is Boudicca, the woman who nearly drove Rome from Britain, who watched her daughters get and decided the empire would pay in blood. How did she go from forgotten Celtic queen to Victorian icon to modern feminist symbol? That statue went up in 1902. Thomas Thornycroft spent 15 years sculpting it. His daughter posed for Boudicca's face. The inscription reads Boudicca, because that's what the Victorians called her. They got the name wrong, but they got something else right. The rage. You can see it in the bronze, the way she's leaning forward, the tension in her shoulders. This isn't just commemorative art. This is fury made permanent, standing guard over the Thames forever. See, the Victorians discovered Boudicca right when they needed her most. British Empire at its peak, ruling a quarter of the world's population. And here's this ancient British queen who fought Rome, the empire that came before. Perfect propaganda. They could celebrate rebellion against foreign rule, while simultaneously crushing it in India, Africa, Ireland. The irony was lost on them. Or maybe they just didn't care. Imperial logic doesn't require consistency, just convenient symbols. But they sanitized her story, made her noble, pure, a mother defending her children's virtue. They loved that part, the violated daughters, the righteous maternal fury. What they downplayed, the slaughter. 70,000 civilians butchered in 3 cities, men, women, children. Boudicca's warriors showed no mercy, because they'd been shown none. Victorian morality couldn't handle that complexity, so they painted her as noble savage, fighting civilized war. Complete nonsense, but it sold books. The Romans who survived her rebellion, they were terrified of her memory. Tacitus wrote about her decades later, still haunted, called her army a horde of women, led by female fury. You can hear the fear in his words. How do you explain losing 3 cities to barbarians? How do you admit a woman almost ended Roman Britain? So they made excuses, said British warriors were undisciplined, that Roman tactics won the day. Truth, they nearly lost everything to her rage. For over 1,000 years, she disappeared completely. Dark Ages had no use for pagan queens. Medieval chroniclers ignored Celtic history. The church preferred virgin martyrs to warrior women. Boudicca's name survived in a few dusty manuscripts, waiting for someone to remember that Britain had heroes before Christianity, before Anglo-Saxons, before Normans, ancient roots running deeper than conquest. But who was going to dig them up? Who had reason to care about forgotten Celtic queens? Archaeologists, that's who. Digging through London, Colchester, St. Albans, finding the burn layers, thick bands of ash and debris, perfectly preserved, buildings reduced to charcoal, pottery melted by intense heat, human bones in cellars where people tried to hide, the physical evidence of Boudicca's fury, still there in the ground. You can touch it today. Fragments of the city she burned. Her rebellion wasn't just historical record, it was geological fact, written in fire and ash. Modern feminists claimed her next. And why not? Here's a woman who refused to be a victim, who turned personal violation into political revolution, who led 100,000 warriors against the most powerful military in the world. The 1970s ate that up. Women's liberation needed historical precedent, proof that female rage could reshape the world. Boudicca fit perfectly. Warrior queen, avenging mother, symbol of resistance. Never mind the messy details. The symbol was pure power. But what makes her story truly timeless? It's not just the gender politics or imperial resistance. It's the human core. A parent pushed too far, a leader who refused to accept injustice quietly, someone who chose dangerous dignity over safe submission. Every generation finds something different in her story, because the basic dynamic never changes. Power abuses those it thinks are powerless. Sometimes those people fight back. Sometimes they win. Sometimes they don't. But they always inspire others to try. Think about her daughters. We never even learned their names. History forgot them completely. 2 teenage girls brutally assaulted to humiliate their mother. They disappear from the record after that day. Did they survive the rebellion? Die in the final battle? Live as refugees among other tribes? We'll never know. Their violations sparked a war that killed tens of thousands, but they vanished from their own story. The injustice that lit the fuse, erased by the explosion that followed. That's how rebellion becomes legend. The specifics get lost. The symbol survives. Boudicca stopped being a person and became an idea. British resistance, female fury, righteous vengeance, anti-imperial struggle. Each era projects its own needs onto her bronze face. She's whatever we need her to be. Celtic nationalist, feminist icon, anti-Roman rebel, Victorian heroine, the actual woman, flesh and blood, and complex motivations. She's been dead 2,000 years, but the symbol lives forever. And that's why her story matters today. Not because she was perfect. She wasn't. Not because her cause was pure. It wasn't. But because she shows us what defiance looks like when everything's been taken away. When compliance means erasure and resistance means probable death. She chose to burn bright rather than fade quietly. Most of us will never face that choice. But it's good to know someone did. Good to remember that sometimes, just sometimes, the powerless can shake the world. Historical memory is strange like that. We remember what we need to remember, forget what we want to forget. The Romans tried to erase her. Medieval writers ignored her. Victorians sanitized her. Feminists claimed her. Each generation rewrites the past to serve the present. That's not necessarily bad. History isn't just what happened, it's what we decide matters about what happened. And we've decided Boudicca matters, the warrior queen who refused to kneel. So there she stands, bronze and eternal on Westminster Bridge, traffic flowing past, Thames rolling toward the sea, 2,000 years since she burned London to ash. And still something about her refuses to be conquered. Maybe that's her real victory. Not the 3 cities she destroyed or the 70,000 she killed, but this, the fact that we can't forget her, the fact that her rage outlasted the empire that created it. Some things are stronger than bronze, some fury burns forever.